Welcome to episode 272 of the Working Fans Podcast, where today, myself and the man called Dave will be talking about top 5 Bryan Danielson matches this week. This episode is brought to you by Game Up Hard Hydration. It's like your favorite sports drink and your favorite seltzer got together, but they're so much better. Dave loves these four flavors so much, he's going to tell you about them right now.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. And guys, it's a full flavor drink with only 110 calories, low carb. You don't have to feel guilty. You can enjoy it just like you can enjoy Bryan Danielson.
Yes, I am very excited to talk Bryan Danielson. It's sad that we saw his full-time career come to an end recently, and now we have the joy of kind of going through his whole career and seeing what we liked about it the most. So you suggested top 5 matches.
Number 1 is WrestleMania 30. We're talking about the biggest moment of his career. We're talking about a guy that was the indie darling, Ring of Honor. Everybody loved him, but was he big enough to be in WWF, WWE? Would they look at him? Would they do anything with him? They brought him in the NXT, which was a game show at the time, and what? They had him lose most of the time. He ends up being part of this big Nexus angle, but he gets fired because he chokes Justin Roberts with a tie, an apparent no-no. And then he gets hired back because people wanted him back. Even John Cena signed a petition to bring him back. They bring him back. He's in the main events. He's winning U.S. titles. But is he ever going to be the big main event star? Yeah, he is. People would not let it die. The Yes Movement was a real thing. This man main evented and won at WrestleMania 30 against Randy Orton and Batista, two of the biggest stars of the Ruthless Aggression era.
I love that you picked this because I'm right there with you. This was on my list. This was the first WrestleMania I watched as getting back into watching wrestling. I believe I said the Royal Rumble of the year. So, excited for WrestleMania. I was already an earlier fan of Daniel Bryan. And, this is really where I discovered him and got familiar with him. So, I'm right there with you. I had that as my first one.
Love it. For my second one, I had SummerSlam 2013 against John Cena. This was the first time he actually won the WWE Championship. He did win the world title before this against, I have it in my notes for later on in another episode we'll do, but I want to say it was Big Show. I think Big Show had beaten Mark Henry and he cashed in his Money in the Bank and he had the big gold belt for a bit. But after that got all done, he ended up winning the WWE title from John Cena, but lost within a minute because Randy Orton cashed in on him, and Triple H, who was the special referee for the match earlier, turned on Daniel Bryan, and that started the whole Yes Movement versus the Authority, which would go on for the next year or so. Yeah, I mean, just going back and looking at Daniel Bryan versus John Cena at that time, that was special too. So that had to make my list. That was a big match. And again, that along with WrestleMania 30, it's got to be right up there.
I was actually just watching the Daniel Bryan DVD, and I saw what I believe was a gauntlet match that was like a qualifier to get into that match you're talking about. So for my second match, I've got Bryan Danielson versus Minoru Suzuki. This is from the AEW Rampage buy-in. It was October 15th, 2021, when Bryan made it to AEW. We were excited for all these dream matches we could get. And even though this might not be the biggest match to a lot of other people or make it on their lists, I was very excited for the possibility of it. And it was still even when Rampage was a new show. So with the newness of Rampage and just this being like a modern dream match, that's why I had to put it at number 2.
So that's a good one. I remember they were actually going up against SmackDown that night too, I want to say, with that buy-in. What is also interesting is when I originally had put my list together, I had Kenny Omega in my next match. But as luck would have it, we got a little delayed with our recording. And I tell this story because I ended up watching a clip of the NWA podcast from Post Wrestling. And they were talking about the influence on NXT with a lot of different African-American performers. And they were talking about Shawn Michaels actually, what he's doing. And one of the things this led to was Bryan Danielson. And they talked about him doing big things and how it was Bryan Danielson who spoke up and said, Kofi Kingston, we need to keep Kofi Mania going. And I want to put him over, whereas a lot of other people might have said, nah, pump the brakes. It was Bryan Danielson who was really responsible around this time of getting Kofi Kingston over. And honestly, looking back at that, like as much as I think Danielson should have been selfish at different times. That really showed me how A, you can get somebody else over, and B, still be over yourself. So I have Bryan Danielson versus Kofi Kingston, Kofi Mania, WrestleMania 35 as my third pick.
For my third match, I've got been building up a lot on modern AEW and all the little shots that Nigel's been taking. And we didn't even think this was a possibility until All In, where we saw Nigel get into the ring and we're like, oh, wow, Nigel can wrestle. And then the first thought we had when he was in the ring is, we can't wait for it to be versus Danielson. It took a little while and it was a little clunky the way they made it to Grand Slam, but this made it to be my third pick.
Yes, great pick. Love Nigel McGuinness. Nigel McGuinness is a great heel, and I was super excited for that match as well. For my fourth pick, I picked Survivor Series 2018 versus Brock Lesnar. At this point, Daniel Bryan had just turned heel, but the way the Survivor Series was structured that year with Raw versus SmackDown, they had a heel versus heel match with Brock versus Daniel Bryan. And the way Bryan worked this match, where he low blowed Lesnar at one point, worked over his leg, it was fantastic. And people were just captivated this match. And this was really one of Brock Lesnar's best matches. And it really added another dynamic to Brock Lesnar. Although Brock would end up winning, this was really, really entertaining at the time for what it was. And I'd recommend anyone going back to check this out. Survivor Series 2018, Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar.
I'm going to check that out because one thing about Daniel Bryan's time in WWE is he was booked as an underdog a lot of the time, which is weird because in any other promotion he went anywhere else across the world, he was one of the best wrestlers in the world. And it only seemed to be the WWE that really viewed him as an underdog and continued to place him that way. My fourth pick is an interesting one because it's Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt versus the Usos. It was a cage match. It was a Raw main event. And this was around the time that Daniel Bryan was a member of the Wyatt family. And for a guy that was never said to have much charisma, this was an interesting pairing. And it was actually this tag match that Bryan kind of broke away from the Wyatt family because the Usos escaped the cage. And then there was a fight inside. Daniel Bryan rips off the overalls he was wearing. He's got on the maroon American Dragon tights and takes it to Bray. I originally wanted to put, I believe they did a Hell in a Cell match on a pay-per-view on this, but going through his DVD, I found this tag match and I thought it was a great match. And it really encapsulated that time that I was a Daniel Bryan fan.
The crowd reaction at the end of this was tremendous. I remember this as you told me. The yes chants, everything. It was absolutely insane. This match is worth going back just to check out that crowd reaction at the end of this. Absolutely loved it. Great pick. My final pick, I am going to AEW for this one, and it'll be him winning the world title from Swerve Strickland at Wembley Stadium. Great story told. Bryan Danielson, Wembley Stadium. Great way, not to wrap up his career, but send his career out with a bang. Anyway,
I chose Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson, AEW Wrestle Dream 2024. And this was really just for, Danielson, losing that career and going out against a former member of the Blackpool Combat Club. It was kind of a wild match for me because, like I said, a lot of my knowledge of Danielson has been this recent run. And I remember how disappointed I was to see him retire when he had to. And then how awesome it was when he came back. And knowing that this time he got to go out a little more on his own terms, despite what you may think of the match, I thought it was a great send-off to his career. And I'm still looking forward to see where this story progresses as it goes on.
Absolutely. Hey, man, those were some great matches. We got more, though.
Oh, yeah, because we knew this was going to be a shorter one. We are pre-taping for you guys because we got to handle wrestling business, and technical difficulties have made this even shorter this week. But what is not short is Game Up Hard Hydration. No, it's the careers of Bryan Danielson and Bret Hart, two of the best in the business. And, when you put this up as a comparison, Dave, I didn't know who I was going to pick. I'm still not 100%, so I'm going to let you go first And I'm going to see if I can pick one of the two best wrestlers to have ever done it.
My favorite wrestler from the early 90s on until his career ended was Bret Hart. Bret Hart's matches with Mr. Perfect, the British Bulldog, Rowdy Piper, Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, just tremendous. Some of my all-time favorite matches. And Bret, when I go back and look at his work, not only was he great in the ring for that time period, but I just even have more of appreciation for him and how real and how legitimate he made things look. Now, when I think of that ruthless aggression era in WWE and people I like, yeah, that's right. That's my guy right there. Daniel Bryan, aka Bryan Danielson. Like, he was just so exciting, and he had such creative ways to get submissions in, and aerial at the right time. Really, really a complete wrestler, and kind of a modern Bret Hart, honestly. And it's really, really hard to pick these two. My brain is telling me Bryan Danielson is just so special. He's so different. This episode's dedicated to him. I should pick him. But I'm going to be a little bit of a heel here. I love Bret Hart so much. I'm going to go with the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Sorry, Brian. Better luck next time, kid. And Bill Goldberg sucks.
You make a really good case for the Hitman. But for me, I think I have to go with Daniel Bryan. I don't know if it's more recency bias that I've seen him, a lot more. I got to see him come back from what we thought was a devastating injury and be able to wrestle. Bret did also come back, but he wasn't at that same level. And I don't want to use that to fault Bret, but it's just, for as good as Bret was, we saw Bryan Danielson have so many different matches in so many different places. Mm-hmm. That it's like, I feel like I've seen him as a more complete wrestler. So that's why I think I personally would have to go with Bryan Danielson with the edge there.
All right. Hey, no argument here. I mean, I did go Bret, but you could go either way with these guys. They're both tremendous. And at the end of the day, I don't say this often because, I think it's kind of hokey, but it is what it is. But this is one dream match I wish we truly would have got.
Yeah, this would have been amazing. And if you're talking about dream matches that you wish you could have got, there's one dream match that's still available, and that's you versus Game Up Hard Hydration. If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store. Author Ray Lopez presents Lockup, Professional Wrestling in Our World. Lockup dives headfirst into the colorful world of professional wrestling. Explore the iconic characters, careers, matches, history, and families, and delve into the bizarre and fascinating entwining of professional wrestling and film, television, football, politics, gender, and race. Pre-orders are available now on Amazon.com or at MascotBooks.com. This is the perfect gift for the wrestling fan in your life. Pick up a copy today on Amazon.com or at MascotBooks.com.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harrison, Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling lives.